89 missed calls. My daughter's voice on the last voicemail, cracking, desperate, barely holding together. "Dad, please, everything's gone. Please call me back. I'm so scared. Please." 5 days ago, she sat across from me in a conference room and called me useless. I'm Tom Carter, 56 years old, started with nothing but a broken-down Ford truck and a mountain of medical debt in Columbus, Ohio. 28 years of bleeding myself dry, missed birthdays, cold dinners, sleepless nights to build something that would outlast me. Carter and Associates, a logistics empire worth $43 million. All for her. Every penny, every sacrifice, every decision. It was all from Madison. Right now, I'm sitting in my kitchen in Dublin, Ohio. My coffee's still hot, the expensive kind I never bought before because I was too busy working. My phone's on the counter. I've got it on silent, but I can see the screen lighting up over and over. Madison's name. Her husband, Blake. Madison again. Blake. Madison. 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 89 times in the last 3 hours they've tried reaching me. I haven't answered once. My blocked call list looks like a phone book. You're probably wondering what kind of father ignores his daughter's desperate calls? What kind of man sits here sipping coffee while his child begs for help? Let me take you back 5 days, to the moment my daughter looked me in the eye and tried to murder everything I'd built. See, I lost my wife Sarah 22 years ago. Cancer. The brutal kind that drains your bank account before it drains the life out of someone you love. We had a 6-year-old daughter and hospital bills that could have buried us for life. At Sarah's funeral, I made Madison a promise. I knelt down at her mother's grave, looked into those tear-filled eyes, and said, "Everything I build from this moment on is yours, sweetheart. Every single piece. I promise." I kept that promise. God help me, I kept it. Started with 1 delivery truck, then 2, then 5. By the time Madison graduated from Ohio State with a business degree, Carter and Associates was handling logistics for half the manufacturing plants in central Ohio. We had 27 trucks, 140 employees, and revenue that made my accountant smile. I brought Madison into the business at 22. Made her operations manager at 25, taught her every route, every client relationship, every handshake deal that kept us alive during the 2008 recession when bigger companies were dropping like flies. She was brilliant, sharp as broken glass, had her mother's eyes and my stubbornness, which I thought was a good thing. I was wrong. 3 years ago, Madison met Blake Cunningham at an industry conference in Chicago. 34 years old, worked for some boutique consulting firm in Indianapolis, the kind of guy who wore suits that cost more than my first truck and talked like a TED Talk had a baby with a business magazine, leveraging synergies, optimizing verticals, disrupting traditional paradigms. He was good-looking, I'll give him that, confident, made Madison laugh, made her feel sophisticated. They were married 6 months later. I had reservations. Something about Blake felt slippery, like trying to grab smoke. But Madison was happy. After raising her alone for so long, watching her smile was worth swallowing my doubts. I welcomed Blake into the family, into the business. That was my first mistake. Have you ever welcomed someone into your life who destroyed it from the inside? Drop a comment because I'm betting some of you know exactly what that feels like. Blake started slow. Sitting in on meetings, always taking notes on that expensive tablet, asking questions that sounded intelligent but revealed he didn't understand logistics from a hole in the ground. Have we considered leveraging synergies in our supply chain verticalization? He'd ask. I'd translate, you mean, should we buy our own trucks instead of leasing? Madison started changing, subtle at first. She stopped calling me at midnight to talk through complex negotiations, something we'd done for years. Stopped asking for my advice on client issues. Started reviewing decisions I'd made for decades. Our longtime clients, people I'd built relationships with for 20 years, people whose kids I knew by name, were being reassessed for value optimization. I felt it slipping. My daughter, my company, my legacy. All disappearing into Blake's corporate buzzword factory. 6 months ago, Madison scheduled a board meeting. We didn't have a board. Never needed one. The company was structured to keep control in the family, just the three of us. But Blake had convinced Madison we needed to formalize our corporate governance structure. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there. Madison avoiding eye contact, Blake's smug confidence, the way they'd whisper in corners and stop talking when I walked in. I walked into that conference room thinking we'd discuss Q3 projections. I walked out realizing my daughter was planning to commit corporate patricide. Madison slid a folder across the conference table. Her voice? God, her voice had transformed into something cold and corporate and utterly foreign. Dad, Blake and I have been analyzing the company's performance metrics. We need to have a serious conversation about your role moving forward. My role? In the company I bled for? Blake leaned back with that practiced, sympathetic expression that made me want to throw him through the window. Tom, with all due respect, the logistics industry has evolved dramatically. The strategies that worked in 1997 aren't applicable in today's digital-first, data-driven marketplace. I kept my voice steady. Our revenue is up 18% over last year. We just signed Morrison Manufacturing, our biggest contract ever. What exactly isn't working? Madison wouldn't look at me. Her eyes stayed fixed on the papers in front of her. That's when I know. When your own child can't meet your gaze, you know something shattered beyond repair. Blake's right, Dad, she said. You're stuck in the past, still doing everything on gut feeling and handshake deals. We need modern leadership, strategic vision. She paused, took a breath. The truth is, you're useless to where this company needs to go. Blake says, I interrupted. Since when does Blake, who's been in this business for 5 minutes, make decisions about my company? It's not just your company anymore, Madison shot back. There it was. The knife sliding between my ribs. Subscribe now, because what happened next will show you why you should never underestimate a man who's already lost everything that matters. Blake pulled out another folder. They'd choreographed this whole performance. We're restructuring the ownership, he said smoothly. Madison will take over as majority owner and CEO. You'll retain a small equity stake, say 15%, and can stay on as a consultant if you'd like. But all decision-making authority transfers to Madison immediately. And if I don't agree? Madison's eyes finally met mine. They were cold. Then Blake and I will start our own logistics company. We'll take all our key clients with us. You'll be left with an empty shell and a reputation as the bitter old man who couldn't let go. It was a bluff. Had to be. Our clients were loyal to me, to relationships I'd spent decades building. But the way Madison said it, so certain, so rehearsed, made something inside me crack like ice over a frozen lake. How long have you been planning this? I asked quietly. Blake shrugged. Does it matter? This is business, Tom. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. The man was helping my daughter steal everything I'd built, and it was nothing personal. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady, like someone had replaced my bones with water. I need time to think about this. 24 hours, Madison said. We need an answer by tomorrow. I walked out, got in my truck, drove home to my house in Dublin, a quiet suburb where I'd raised Madison after Sarah died, where every corner held memories of birthday parties and homework at the kitchen table, and teaching her to ride a bike in the driveway. I sat in my study, surrounded by photos. Madison at her first day of school, missing her front teeth. Madison at her college graduation, so proud. Madison and me cutting the ribbon when we opened our new warehouse facility 5 years ago, both of us grinning like idiots. When had I lost her? At what exact moment did my daughter become someone who could look me in the eye and call me useless? That night, I barely slept, but I also made calls, quiet ones, to my lawyer, Gerald. My accountant, Patricia. People I'd trusted for decades. By morning, I had the full picture. And it was so much worse than simple betrayal. Madison hadn't waited for my answer. She hadn't waited for anything. For the past 3 months, she'd been forging my signature on transfer documents, every asset, every account, every property deed, every share of stock. Already transferred, already gone, already in her name alone. My lawyer's voice was grim when he called at 6 a.m. Tom, I'm looking at the documents. Legally, while the signatures are clearly forged, you'd be facing a 2 to 3 year court battle to prove it. Madison and Blake have been meticulous. They've got notarized copies, witness signatures, the whole 9 yards. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was planned. I sat there, staring at documents bearing my forged signature, and something inside me went very, very quiet. My daughter. My little girl. The child I'd sacrificed everything for. She'd already stolen my life's work. But here's what Madison didn't know. What nobody knew. What I'd kept secret for 12 years. Because when you build an empire, you don't just plan for competitors trying to destroy you from the outside. You plan for family trying to destroy you from the inside. The company Madison thought she'd stolen, Carter and Associates, with its impressive revenue and its fleet of trucks and its client list, it was a shell. A beautiful, profitable, carefully constructed shell. But still, just a shell. The real assets, the crown jewels, the things that actually made the company worth $43 million, those were somewhere Madison had never thought to look. If you've ever had to protect yourself from the people who should have protected you, drop a comment, because sometimes the biggest threat isn't strangers, it's the ones who know where you keep the keys.
Morning came cold and gray, the kind of Ohio autumn morning where you can see your breath. I got dressed slowly. Jeans, flannel shirt, work boots. The same outfit I'd worn the day I started this company, with one broken down truck and a prayer. I packed a cardboard box. Not a big one, just enough for the personal items in my office. When I arrived at Carter and Associates, 7:47 a.m., early like always, Madison and Blake were already there, sitting in my office, behind my desk. Madison was in my chair. Blake was perched on the edge of the desk, legs crossed, looking like he had already redecorated the place in his mind. They looked relieved when I walked in. Probably thought I'd spent the night panicking. Maybe they expected me to beg, or rage, or make some desperate legal threat. Instead, I set the cardboard box on the desk between us and said 5 words. I've made my decision. Blake's smug smile grew wider. Madison's shoulders relaxed slightly. I'm walking away. The company is yours, Madison. Congratulations. The relief on Madison's face flickered. Then confusion. Just like that? She asked. Just like that. I started loading items into the box, slowly, deliberately. Each one a small goodbye. The photo of Madison at her kindergarten graduation. She'd won a paper cap she'd decorated herself, crooked stars and her name in backwards letters. My old baseball from the company softball team. We'd won the championship in 2007. Madison had been there, cheering from the bleachers. A coffee mug that said "World's Best Dad." Madison had given it to me for Father's Day when she was 9. And finally, the paperweight, the one Madison had made in 3rd grade art class. Misshapen clay painted bright blue, with "To the best daddy in the world," Love Madison, scratched into the bottom. I held it for a moment. Wondered if she even remembered making it. I'm too old to fight my own daughter, I said quietly, placing it in the box. If you think Blake's vision is better than mine, then prove it. Show me I was wrong. Build something that makes this company proud. Madison opened her mouth. Dad, I held up a hand. No, you said what you needed to say. Now I'm saying mine. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Maybe for the last time. I hope this makes you happy, Madison. I really, truly do. Because I spent 22 years building this for one reason. Your happiness. If stealing it from me is what makes you happy, then I guess I still succeeded. The words hit her. I saw it in her eyes. A flicker of something that might have been guilt or shame or second thoughts. But Blake jumped in before she could respond. Tom, we appreciate you being reasonable about this. This really is what's best for everyone. No hard feelings. I looked at his hand. Didn't take it. No feelings at all, I said. Then I picked up my box and walked out. Through the office where I'd worked 16-hour days, past the conference room where I'd negotiated deals that saved us during the recession, down the hallway lined with photos of company milestones, most of them featuring Madison and me together, smiling, looking like an unbreakable team. Every employee I passed looked away. They knew. Office gossip travels faster than email. Trina, my office manager, 23 years of loyalty, had tears in her eyes as she walked past. I just nodded. Got in my truck, a 2019 F-150. Not fancy, but reliable, like everything I'd ever built. Drove away from the building I'd constructed with my own hands, the warehouse I'd designed, the loading docks where I'd worked alongside my crew during busy seasons, because I never asked anyone to do something I wouldn't do myself. Have you ever walked away from something you loved because staying would destroy you? Comment below, because I'm betting half of you have been exactly where I was that morning. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove to Sarah's grave, Maple Grove Cemetery, north of Columbus. Quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where you can think. I sat on the grass next to her headstone, set the cardboard box beside me. I tried, Sarah. I kept my promise. I built something for her, something real, something lasting. I paused. She didn't want it. Not from me. She wanted it from herself, or from Blake, or from whoever the hell she's become. The wind rustled through the maple trees. If you believe in signs, it felt like Sarah was listening. I don't know if I did the right thing, walking away. But I couldn't fight her. I couldn't take her to court and drag our family through years of legal hell and turn her into my enemy in front of the whole world. I picked up the clay paperweight, traced the words with my thumb. Maybe that makes me weak. Maybe I should have fought harder. But Sarah, she's still my little girl, even if she doesn't want to be anymore. I sat there for an hour, just thinking, remembering, grieving something that wasn't dead but felt like it was. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Madison. The Morrison contract wants to meet tomorrow. Should I take the lead? I stared at it. Morrison Manufacturing, our biggest client. $15 million in annual revenue. A relationship I'd built over 12 years with their CEO, James Morrison. who I personally helped during his company's bankruptcy scare in 2015. I typed nothing, sent nothing, just locked my phone and put it back in my pocket. Subscribe if you want to see what happens when someone takes everything from you and you let them, because you know something they don't. Day 2, I woke up at my normal time, 5:30 a.m., but didn't go to work because I didn't have work to go to anymore. Instead, I went to my garage, did a workout I'd been putting off for months, lifted weights, ran on the treadmill, felt my muscles burn in a way that had nothing to do with stress and everything to do with just being alive. I made breakfast, real breakfast, eggs, bacon, toast, coffee. Not grabbed from a drive-through between meetings. Actually cooked. Actually enjoyed.
Then I called my brother Vincent in Denver. We talked for 2 hours about absolutely nothing important. His grandkids, his garden, baseball, the weather. It felt light. Like a weight I'd been carrying for 28 years had finally been lifted. Day 3, more of the same. I read a book, an actual book, fiction, not business strategy or leadership development. A thriller about a bank heist. It was ridiculous and entertaining, and I finished it in one sitting. I felt good, rested, clear-headed. People think revenge is hot, that it's explosive rage and screaming matches and dramatic confrontations in parking lots. They're wrong. Real revenge is ice cold. It's patient. It's surgical. It's watching dominoes you set up years ago finally start to fall, and knowing you don't have to push a single one. Gravity will do the work for you. Meanwhile, at Carter & Associates, Madison and Blake were celebrating. Trina texted me updates. She'd already decided she was quitting, just waiting for the right moment. Blake ordered new furniture for your office, one of those standing desks and a treadmill thing. Madison's going through your files. They're planning a rebranding meeting with all the department heads tomorrow. Blake keeps using words like synergy and disruption. Half the staff is rolling their eyes. The other half is updating their resumes. I smiled at that. Madison was going through my files, my contacts, my notes. 28 years of relationship building, client insights, and industry knowledge. She thought she was inheriting an empire. She was inheriting a house of cards. And I was the one who'd intentionally built the foundation out of tissue paper. Day 4 started like the others. Peaceful. Calm. I was getting used to this retirement thing. Then my phone buzzed at 2:47 p.m. Madison's text. The Morrison contract wants to meet tomorrow. Should I take the lead? I read it 3 times. Imagine Madison's confusion. Morrison was supposed to be a done deal. We'd had their contract locked in for another 2 years. Why would they want a meeting? I didn't respond. 3 hours later, another text. Dad, Morrison's assistant called. They're asking about contract compliance issues. Do you know what that means? Still didn't respond. What would you do? Comment answer if you'd call her back, or silence if you'd let her figure it out herself. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Day 5 started at 7:14 a.m. with my phone ringing. Madison's name lit up the screen. I was making breakfast, French toast, because why not? And I just let it ring. Voicemail. Then she called back immediately. Voicemail. Then Blake called. Voicemail. Madison, again! By 9 a.m., my phone was having a seizure. Constant buzzing, calls, texts, voicemails piling up like snow in a blizzard. I glanced at the screen. 89 missed calls. The messages evolved. I could track their descent into panic just by reading the previews. Dad, call me back when you can. Dad, we need to talk about Morrison. Dad, call me now. Tom, this is urgent. Call immediately. Dad, please, something's wrong with the Morrison contract. Dad, the bank is calling about our credit line. Dad, all the clients are calling. What did you do? I poured myself coffee, sat down at my kitchen table. Finally, I listened to the voicemails. The progression was almost beautiful in its desperation. The last one was from Madison. She was crying, actually sobbing. Dad, please, I don't understand what's happening. Morrison pulled their contract. So did Henderson Industries and Pacific Manufacturing. They all say they have existing agreements with someone called Midwestern Logistics Solutions, and they've never heard of Carter and Associates handling their actual accounts. Your voice cracked. Dad, that doesn't make sense. We've had these clients for years. Their payments go through our books. I've seen them. Please call me back. Blake says something's really wrong with the company's structure. There are all these payments going out every month to this Midwestern company, and we can't figure out what they're for. And Dad, I'm scared. Please, I'm so sorry for what I said. Please just call me back. I took a sip of my coffee. It was good coffee. The expensive kind from that boutique roaster downtown. The kind I never bought before, because I was too busy building an empire for an ungrateful child. My phone buzzed again. Another call from Madison. I let it ring twice. Then 3 times. Then I answered. Hello, Madison. Dad! Oh, thank God! Her voice was pure panic, shaking, desperate. And that's when I taught my daughter the most expensive lesson of her life. Dad? Ugh, thank God. Dad, please, you have to help us. Madison's voice was shredded, raw, like she'd been crying for hours. Good. Everything's falling apart, she continued, words tumbling over each other. The clients are all leaving. Morrison, Henderson, Pacific, they're all saying they don't have contracts with us. They're saying they work with some company called Midwestern Logistics Solutions. But, Dad, that doesn't make sense. We've been servicing these accounts for years. I've personally managed some of them. I took another sip of coffee, let the silence stretch. Dad, are you there? I'm here. The bank called. They're saying we're over-leveraged, that our assets don't match our liabilities, that we've been making massive monthly payments to this Midwestern company, and they want to know why. And Blake, he's been going through the financial records, and he says we might not actually own anything. And Dad, please, what's happening? I could hear Blake in the background, his voice sharp. Ask him about the Delaware Corporation. Ask him about the property holdings. What Madison and Blake didn't know, what they couldn't have known because they were too busy being clever, was that the company they stole was worthless without me. Madison, I said calmly, you told me I was useless to the family business. Blake said I was stuck in the past, remember? So I'm letting you and your husband handle it, with your modern leadership and strategic vision. Dad, no, wait, this isn't... Good luck, I said. Then I hung up, blocked both their numbers, finished my French toast. If you think I'm being too harsh, comment too far. If you think she deserved it, comment justice. Let's see where people stand. My phone tried to ring 17 more times in the next hour. Blocked calls don't go through, but I could see the attempts lighting up my screen like a desperate SOS signal. I ignored all of them. Instead, I called my lawyer, Gerald. Tom, he answered immediately. I assume you've heard from Madison. 89 times last count. He laughed, actually laughed. I got a call from their attorney this morning. Very panicked, very confused. They're trying to figure out what the hell happened. Should I call them back? Not yet, I said. Let them sweat for another day. Then we'll talk about terms. Terms? Tom, you hold all the cards. They stole an empty shell. They've got nothing to negotiate with. I've got my daughter's future. I said quietly. "That's worth something, even if she doesn't deserve it." Gerald sighed. He knew me for 20 years, knew I was soft when it came to Madison. "You're a better man than me," he said. "All right, I'll wait for your signal." I hung up and finally let myself feel it. The satisfaction, the vindication, the cold, perfect justice of watching someone who betrayed you realize exactly what they've lost. But also the grief, because this wasn't some business rival or corporate enemy. This was my daughter. Let me tell you what Madison and Blake discovered that morning. Let me tell you exactly what I'd hidden from them for 12 years. Back in 2013, when Madison was just finishing college, before she ever came into the business, I had a conversation with an asset protection specialist named Raymond Chen in Delaware. "I need to protect what I've built," I told him. "Not from competitors, not from lawsuits, from family, if things ever go wrong." Raymond designed something brilliant, something legal, something airtight. We created a separate entity, Midwestern Logistics Solutions, LLC. On paper, it looked like just another vendor, one of dozens that Carter & Associates worked with, the kind of operational company that handles specialized services. In reality, Midwestern Logistics owned everything that actually mattered. The proprietary routing software I'd spent 15 years developing, licensed exclusively to Midwestern Logistics Solutions, then sub-licensed to Carter & Associates on a month-to-month basis. The relationships with our top 15 clients, the ones representing 70% of our revenue, those contracts were actually with Midwestern Logistics. Carter & Associates was just the billing intermediary. The warehouse property, owned by a real estate holding company I'd set up, then leased to Carter & Associates month to month. The fleet of trucks Madison thought were company assets, leased from another entity I controlled. Even our company's name and branding, I'd trademarked them through a separate IP holding company. Carter & Associates, the company that Madison had just stolen through forged signatures and corporate betrayal, was a management company that coordinated services. It had employees, overhead, office space, and a very impressive-looking revenue line. But the actual valuable assets, the things that made the company worth $43 million, were all held separately, all protected, all mine. And Madison had never known, never suspected, never asked the right questions. Because when you're family, you trust, and trust makes you blind. Subscribe now if you want to learn how the people closest to you can become your biggest threat and how to protect yourself before it's too late. The monthly payments Madison had just discovered, those were licensing fees, service fees, lease payments, all flowing from Carter & Associates to my protected entities, all completely legal, all documented, all traceable. For 12 years, Madison had seen these payments on the books, millions of dollars flowing out to Midwestern Logistics Solutions and associated companies. She'd never questioned them. Why would she? I was her father. She trusted me. Until she didn't. And now she was discovering that the company she had stolen through forged signatures and corporate betrayal was a hollow shell, a beautiful, impressive, utterly worthless, hollow shell. Without access to Midwestern Logistics and its contracts, Carter & Associates couldn't service its clients. Without the software licenses, they couldn't route deliveries. Without the leased trucks, they couldn't make runs. Without the warehouse, they couldn't store inventory. They had the name, the employees, the office furniture, and absolutely nothing else that mattered. My phone buzzed. A text from Trina, my former office manager. "Tom, you should see this place. Blake's having a complete meltdown. He's been on the phone with lawyers all morning. Madison locked herself in your old office and won't come out. 3 drivers just quit. The Morrison meeting got canceled. They sent a legal notice instead. What the hell did you do?" I smiled and typed back, I protected my life's work from people who wanted to steal it. How's that for stuck in the past? Another text came through. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. It was from James Morrison, CEO of Morrison Manufacturing. Our, Midwestern Logistics' biggest client. Tom, I just got off the phone with your daughter. She's very confused about our contract. I explained that Morrison Manufacturing has worked exclusively with Midwestern Logistics Solutions for 12 years, and I have no idea what Carter and Associates is. She started crying and hung up. What's going on? You all right? I called him back immediately. James, I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. You want to tell me what's happening? Because I got a very strange call asking me to attend a meeting about contract renewals with some company I've never heard of. I gave him the short version. My daughter and her husband tried to steal my company. I let them take the shell. They're now discovering what the shell was worth without the substance. James whistled low. Damn, Tom, that's cold. She forged my signature to steal everything I built. She called me useless. She chose a consultant who's been in the industry for 5 minutes over the man who taught her everything she knows. So what happens now? Good question. Now, I said. Now they learn what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. When you think a handshake and a relationship don't matter in the digital-first marketplace. When you forget that business isn't just about assets and revenue. It's about trust. You gonna let them drown? I thought about Madison, 6 years old at Sarah's funeral, clutching my hand. 8 years old, bringing me terrible coffee in bed on Father's Day. 16, crying on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart. 22, so proud in her graduation gown, hugging me and saying, I want to make you proud, Dad. I want to build something amazing with you. I don't know yet, honestly. Part of me wants to watch them fail, wants them to lose everything so they understand what they tried to do to me. But James, she's still my daughter, even if she doesn't want to be anymore. You're a better man than most, Tom. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time staring at my phone. 89 missed calls, dozens of texts, voicemails that progressed from anger to confusion to panic to desperate pleading. My daughter was learning the hardest lesson of her life, and I was the one teaching it to her. But here's what I didn't expect. Here's the twist that was about to change everything. My phone rang again. Unknown number. But the area code was local, Columbus. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mr. Carter, this is Detective Lisa Brennan with the Columbus Police Department, Financial Crimes Division. I need to ask you some questions about Carter and Associates and allegations of fraud. My blood went cold. What allegations? Your daughter Madison Carter filed a report this morning claiming you've been embezzling from the family business for over a decade through a fraudulent shell company. She's provided documentation of transfers totaling over $18 million. Sir, I'm going to need you to come down to the station. Blake had convinced Madison to go to war. And now this wasn't just about family betrayal. This was about my freedom. Detective Lisa Brennan's office smelled like coffee, old files, and the particular kind of stress that comes from dealing with white-collar crime. I'd arrived voluntarily, which Gerald, my lawyer, said was stupid, but I had nothing to hide. Literally, everything I'd done was legal, documented, airtight. But sitting across from a detective who's been told you've embezzled $18 million still makes your hands sweat. Mr. Carter, Detective Brennan said, sliding a folder across the desk, I'm going to be straight with you. Your daughter has provided us with 12 years of financial records showing consistent monthly transfers from Carter and Associates to an entity called Midwestern Logistics Solutions. Transfers totaling $18.7 million. She claims you created this entity to funnel money out of the family business. I opened the folder. Inside were copies of bank statements, transfer records, corporate filings, all meticulously organized. Blake's work, clearly. Do you deny making these transfers? Brennan asked. I don't deny anything, I said calmly. Those transfers are real. They're also completely legal. Gerald leaned forward. Detective, my client established Midwestern Logistics Solutions in 2013 as a legitimate business entity. Everything was properly filed with the state of Delaware, all taxes paid, all documentation in order. These weren't embezzlement payments. They were legitimate business transactions. Brennan looked skeptical. Business transactions? Mr. Carter essentially paid himself $18 million through a shell company his daughter didn't know existed. Correction, I said. Carter and Associates paid licensing fees, service fees, and lease payments to Midwestern Logistics Solutions for use of proprietary software, client contracts, and physical assets. The fact that I own both entities isn't fraud, it's asset protection. Asset protection against your own daughter. Brennan raised an eyebrow. Asset protection against anyone who might try to take what I built without understanding what made it valuable, including family, especially family. Gerald pulled out his own folder, thicker than Blake's. Detective, we anticipated this. Here's every contract, every licensing agreement, every lease arrangement between the two entities, all signed, notarized, and legally binding. Here are the Delaware corporate filings from 2013. Here are 12 years of tax returns showing Midwestern Logistics as a separate, profitable business entity. And here, he called out another stack, are the forged documents Madison used to transfer ownership of Carter and Associates to herself without my client's knowledge or consent. That got Brennan's attention. Forged documents? 3 months ago, Madison Carter began systematically forging her father's signature on transfer paperwork. She moved every asset she thought he owned into her name. We have handwriting analysis ready. We have testimony from notaries who never actually witnessed Tom's signature. Detective, the only fraud committed here was by my client's daughter, not by my client. I watched Brennan's expression shift. She picked up one of the forged documents, compared it to my actual signature on my driver's license. Even to my untrained eye, the differences were obvious. Madison had tried, but she wasn't an expert forger. Why didn't you report this? Brennan asked me. Because she's my daughter, I said quietly. I didn't want to send her to prison. I just wanted to walk away. Have you ever protected someone who hurt you because you still loved them? Comment protected if you have, because sometimes love makes you do stupid things. Brennan sat back in her chair. So, let me get this straight. Your daughter tried to steal your company using forged documents. You didn't fight back, you just walked away, and now she's filing fraud charges against you because she's realizing the company she stole is worthless. That's an accurate summary, Gerald said. And you have documentation proving everything you did was legal? Every single transaction, I confirmed. Brennan was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed the folder. Mr. Carter, I'm not going to pursue charges. This is clearly a civil matter between family members, not criminal fraud. However, she looked at me seriously. I am going to have to investigate the forgery allegations. If what you're saying is true, your daughter committed multiple felonies. My chest tightened. Detective, I don't want her prosecuted. I just want this to be over. That may not be your choice, sir. If crimes were committed, Please, I interrupted. She's 28 years old. Her husband manipulated her. She made a terrible mistake, but she doesn't deserve a criminal record that'll follow her for the rest of her life. Brennan studied me. You're protecting someone who tried to destroy you? I'm protecting my daughter. There's a difference. After we left the police station, Gerald turned to me in the parking lot. Tom, you're making a mistake. She tried to have you arrested. She's not going to stop just because the police aren't pressing charges. What do you want me to do? Send her to prison? I want you to protect yourself. Madison and Blake are in full panic mode. They've lost everything. People in that position do desperate things. He was right, but he wasn't a father. Subscribe if you've ever had to choose between justice and mercy, because that choice reveals who you really are. When I got home, there were 3 people waiting in my driveway. Madison, Blake, and someone I didn't recognize, an older woman in an expensive suit. Dad! Madison jumped out of her car the moment she saw me. Her eyes were red, face blotchy from crying. Dad, please, we need to talk. Blake stayed back, looking furious. The woman stepped forward, extending her hand. Mr. Carter, I'm Veronica Hughes. I'm representing Madison and Blake in this matter. This matter, I repeated. Is that what we're calling family betrayal now? Mr. Carter, get off my property, I said quietly. Madison flinched like I'd hit her. Dad, please, just 5 minutes. Let me explain. Explain what? Madison, how you forged my signature for 3 months? How you called me useless? How you tried to have me arrested this morning for fraud because you realized you'd stolen something worthless? I didn't know, she shouted. Blake said, I roared, and Madison actually stepped back. For 3 years, every decision you've made has started with Blake said. What happened to the daughter who used to call me at midnight to talk through problems? What happened to the girl who wanted to build something amazing with her father? Tears streamed down Madison's face. I don't know what happened. I wanted to prove I was capable, that I wasn't just Tom Carter's daughter, that I could run things on my own. So you stole from me to prove you were capable? I thought Blake convinced me that you were holding me back, that the company would never grow with you making all the decisions. He said, Stop, I held up my hand. Stop telling me what Blake said. What do you say, Madison? What does my daughter say about what she did to her father? Madison collapsed, literally sank to her knees on my driveway, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong about everything. Blake was wrong. I destroyed us. I destroyed our family for nothing. Blake finally spoke up, his voice sharp. Madison, get up. We don't need him. We'll rebuild. With what? Madison screamed at him, still on her knees. We have nothing. No clients, no assets, no contracts, no way to operate. The company is empty, Blake. And it's empty because my father who I betrayed, was smarter than both of us combined. She looked back at me, mascara running down her face. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I destroyed everything. But Dad, please, I'm losing the house. The bank is calling in loans. Blake and we're getting divorced. I have nothing. I am nothing. Please, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to help me survive this. What would you do? Your child betrayed you, tried to destroy you, called you useless, and now she's on her knees begging for help. Comment, help her, or walk away. I looked at Madison, really looked at her. She was 6 years old again, crying after falling off her bike. 16, heartbroken over a boy who didn't deserve her tears. 22, nervous for her first day at Carter & Associates, asking, What if I'm not good enough, Dad? I'd told her then, You're a Carter. We don't fail. We just learn expensive lessons. This was the most expensive lesson I'd ever taught. Get up, Madison, I said quietly. She looked up at me, hope flickering in her eyes. Go home. Sign divorce papers. Fire whatever lawyer Blake convinced you to hire. Then, and only then, we'll talk about what happens next. Tom, Veronica Hughes interjected. My clients are willing to negotiate a settlement. Your clients have nothing to negotiate with, Gerald said, stepping forward. They stole an empty company using forged documents. They're facing potential felony charges. If Mr. Carter wanted to, he could sue them into bankruptcy and press criminal charges. The only reason he's not is because he's a better person than they deserve. Blake's face went red. This is extortion! You can't— We can, Gerald said calmly, and unless you want to spend the next 5 years in court, or possibly prison, I suggest you take whatever mercy Tom is willing to offer and disappear. Blake looked at Madison, then at me. His expression shifted from anger to something colder, calculating. Fine, he said. Madison, we're leaving. But Madison didn't move. She was still staring at me. Dad, are you really going to help me? I didn't answer, just turned and walked toward my house. Behind me, I heard Blake hissing at Madison. He's bluffing. He won't let you fall. He's too soft. We can still leverage this. I stopped, turned around. Blake, I said, my voice ice cold. You have 48 hours to be out of my daughter's life completely. Divorce papers signed, belongings removed, gone. If you're not, I will personally make it my mission to ensure you never work in this industry again. I will call every client, every contact, every person I've built relationships with over 30 years, and I will tell them exactly what kind of man you are. Blake's confidence cracked. You can't. I can and I will. Ask around about Tom Carter. Ask what happens when someone crosses me. I'm patient, I'm methodical, and I never, ever forget. For the first time since I'd met him, Blake Cunningham looked genuinely afraid. Good. They left. Madison kept looking back like she wanted to see something more, but Blake dragged her to their car and they drove away. Gerald turned to me. Tom, what's your play here? I don't know yet, I admitted. Part of me wants to let her crash and burn, learn the hard way what betrayal costs. And the other part? The other part remembers standing at Sarah's grave, promising I'd always protect our daughter, even from herself. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have predicted, was that Blake wasn't done fighting, and his next move was about to force my hand in a way I never saw coming. That night, I got a call from James Morrison at 11:47 p.m. Tom, you need to know something. Blake Cunningham contacted me tonight. He's offering to undercut Midwestern Logistics rates by 30% if I'll switch Morrison Manufacturing's contract to a new company he's starting. My blood cold. What did you tell him? I told him to go to hell. But Tom, he's calling all your clients, every single one. And he's telling them that you're about to retire, that Midwestern Logistics is being dissolved, and that they need to move their contracts now before they're left stranded. That's a lie. I know that, but some of your clients don't. Pacific Manufacturing called me for a reference. Henderson Industries is supposedly meeting with Blake tomorrow. Tom, he's trying to burn down what you built out of pure spite. I sat down heavily. How many clients has he contacted? From what I'm hearing, all of them. He's going scorched earth. If he can't have the company, he's going to try to destroy what you protected. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. Blake had just made his biggest mistake. Because he'd forgotten something important. I'd spent 30 years building relationships in this industry. 30 years earning trust and respect. 30 years proving that my word meant something. Blake had spent 3 years talking about synergies and optimization, and now we were about to find out which mattered more,
relationships, or strategy? I made one phone call to Patricia, my accountant. Patricia, remember that contingency plan we discussed? The one where we expand Midwestern Logistics and bring Carter and Associates employees over directly? You want to pull the trigger? Tomorrow morning. Offer every single employee at Carter and Associates a position with Midwestern Logistics. Same salary, better benefits. Anyone who wants to leave that sinking ship can come work for the real company. That's going to leave Madison with nothing. I know. But Blake just declared war, and in war, there are casualties. The next morning, 23 of Carter and Associates' 27 employees accepted my offer. By noon, Madison was sitting in an empty office with no staff, no clients, and no way forward. And I was about to get a phone call that would change everything one final time.
The call came at 2:17 p.m. on a Wednesday. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I'd been getting calls from reporters, from Blake's lawyer, from business contacts who'd heard rumors and wanted the real story. But something made me pick up. Mr. Carter? The voice was young, female, shaking. This is Dr. Sarah Chen from Grant Medical Center. I'm calling about Madison Carter. She's listed you as her emergency contact. My world stopped. What happened? She was brought in by ambulance about an hour ago. Mr. Carter, she took an overdose of sleeping pills. She's stable now, but she's asking for you. I don't remember the drive to the hospital. Don't remember parking. Don't remember walking through the emergency room doors. I just remember seeing Madison in that hospital bed, tubes in her arms, her face pale and small, and looking exactly like she had at 6 years old when she'd had her tonsils removed and woke up scared and crying for her daddy. "Dad," she whispered when she saw me. I sat down next to her bed, took her hand. It felt cold. "What did you do, sweetheart?" My voice cracked on the last word. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I lost everything. The house is being foreclosed. Blake emptied our joint accounts and disappeared. All the employees left. I got served with fraud investigation papers. And Dad, I couldn't see a way forward. I destroyed everything. I destroyed us." Have you ever watched someone you love hit rock bottom? Someone who put themselves there, but you still love them anyway? Comment below, because this moment right here is where I had to decide who I wanted to be. "You could have called me," I said. "After what I did, after I tried to have you arrested, after I called you useless and stole from you and chose Blake over you?" Fresh tears streamed down her face. "Dad, I don't deserve your help. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve anything except to live with what I've done." I looked at my daughter, my only child, the girl I'd built an empire for, the girl who tried to tear that empire down, and I made a choice. "Madison, do you remember what I told you when you were 16? When that boy broke your heart and you said you'd never trust anyone again?" She shook her head weakly. I said, "Pain teaches us lessons that nothing else can. Sometimes we have to break before we can become stronger." You've broken, sweetheart. The question is, are you going to let that breaking destroy you, or are you going to use it to become who you were always meant to be? I don't know how to come back from this. Neither do I admitted. But we're going to figure it out, together. Madison's eyes widened. You're going to help me? After everything? I'm your father. That doesn't stop just because you made terrible decisions. It doesn't stop just because you hurt me. It doesn't stop just because you forgot who you were for a while. I squeezed her hand. But Madison, I need you to understand something. I will help you rebuild. I will give you a second chance. But if you ever betray me again, we're done. No third chances. No more mercy. Do you understand? She nodded frantically. I understand. Dad, I swear, I'll never... Don't swear. Just prove it. Show me through your actions that you've learned, that you've grown, that the daughter I raised is still in there somewhere under all the mistakes and the manipulation and the greed. Subscribe now if you believe in second chances, but only when they're earned, not given freely. The hospital kept Madison for 72 hours on psychiatric hold. I visited every day. On the second day, she told me everything. How Blake had slowly isolated me from her over 3 years. How he'd convinced her I was holding her back, limiting her potential, stealing her opportunities. How he'd made every business decision seem like it was my ego getting in the way of progress. He made me believe that loving you and respecting your business experience meant I was weak. He said strong leaders make hard decisions, that family and business don't mix, that I needed to choose between being your daughter and being successful. And you chose success. I chose what I thought was success, but Dad, I was so wrong. I didn't build anything. I just destroyed what you'd already built. Blake didn't teach me to be a leader. He taught me to be a thief. On the third day, we talked about the future. I want to earn back your trust, Dad. I don't know how, and I know it'll take years, but Dad, I want to try. I want to be the daughter you raised, the one who cared about relationships more than revenue, the one who understood that business is about people, not just profit. What about Blake? Divorce papers are signed. He's gone. Turns out he was already talking to another family business owner in Cincinnati, some guy with a manufacturing company and a daughter he wanted to consult for. I wasn't special. I was just available. That hurt her. I could see it. But it was a necessary pain. Madison, here's what I'm willing to do. Midwestern Logistics Solutions needs an entry-level logistics coordinator. The pay is $42,000 a year, less than half what you were making. You'll be doing route planning, client communications, basic operational work. You'll report to Patricia. You'll work your way up from the bottom, just like I did. No special treatment, no shortcuts. You'll earn every promotion through merit, not through family connection. Madison stared at me. You want me to start over? Completely over? I want you to learn the business the right way this time. Not as Tom Carter's daughter who gets handed an empire, but as Madison Carter, who earns respect through hard work and integrity. She thought about it for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, when do I start? After you're cleared by the hospital, after you've completed therapy, which is non-negotiable, after you've proven to me that you're stable and serious about this. I'm serious, Dad. I promise. Would you give your child a second chance like this, or would you cut them off completely? Comment second chance or cut off. I'm curious where you all stand. 6 months later, Madison was sitting in the Midwestern Logistics Solutions office, my actual office, the one she'd never known existed, sorting through routing schedules for Pacific Manufacturing.
She'd kept her head down, worked hard, showed up early, stayed late, never complained, never asked for special treatment. Patricia told me Madison had cried in the bathroom twice in the first month. The humiliation of starting over, of watching former peers move ahead while she filed paperwork, was crushing. But she kept showing up. She was living in a small apartment in Clintonville, a downgrade from the McMansion she'd shared with Blake. Driving a used Honda Civic instead of the BMW she'd bought with company money. Eating leftovers instead of restaurant meals. She was learning what I'd known at 28, that building something real requires sacrifice. One afternoon, she knocked on my office door. Dad, can I talk to you? Come in. Madison sat down across from me. She looked tired, but lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. I wanted to thank you, she said, for giving me this chance, for not giving up on me when I deserved it. You're my daughter. I'll never give up on you. I know that now, but Dad, I need to tell you something. I finally understand what you built. Not just the business structure or the asset protection, though that was brilliant. I understand what you built with relationships, with trust, with integrity. She pulled out a folder. James Morrison called me yesterday. He wanted to tell me about the time you extended them credit during their bankruptcy scare. How you personally vouched for them with suppliers. How you could have let them fail and taken their market share, but instead you helped them survive. James is a good man. Good men deserve support. Henderson Industries told me a similar story. You paid for the owner's daughter's hospital bills when their insurance fell through. You didn't tell anyone. You just did it. Madison's eyes filled with tears. Pacific Manufacturing said you drove through a snowstorm personally to make a delivery when their contract depended on it. Dad, every single client you have isn't there because of contracts or competitive pricing. They're there because you built relationships based on character, on being someone people could trust. She wiped her eyes. Blake taught me to see people as revenue sources, as metrics, as opportunities to optimize. You taught me, or tried to teach me, to see them as human beings, as partners, as people worth protecting. And now? I asked. Now I'm trying to unlearn 3 years of Blake's poison and remember what you taught me in the 25 years before that. It's hard, Dad. Some days I still catch myself thinking like Blake, seeing angles instead of relationships. But I'm trying. That's all I can ask. That night, I got a call from Blake's new target in Cincinnati. Mr. Carter, this is Douglas Warner. I run Warner Manufacturing. A consultant named Blake Cunningham has been pitching me on a company restructure that would push out my father, the founder, and position my son and I as the new leadership. Something about it felt wrong, so I did some research. Found out what happened with you and your daughter. I wanted to thank you for being a cautionary tale that saved my family. I smiled. You're kicking Blake out? I'm calling the police about attempted fraud. He forged some preliminary documents using my signature, thought I wouldn't notice, but unlike your daughter, I checked with my father first. After we hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a year. Peace. Blake was about to face consequences. Madison was rebuilding. And I had my daughter back. Not the entitled, manipulated version, but the real version. The one I'd raised. 2 years later, Madison made senior logistics coordinator. She'd earned it. Patricia said she was the hardest worker in the office, the first one to volunteer for difficult clients, the one who stayed late to solve problems instead of passing them off. She was also starting to date someone new, a teacher named Connor, who didn't care about her family's money or business connections, who liked her for her, not for what she could give him. Dad, Madison said one Sunday when we were having dinner, a tradition we'd restarted, I need to tell you something. What's that? I'm glad you didn't let me get away with it. I'm glad you taught me that lesson even though it almost killed me to learn it. Because if you'd just forgiven me and handed everything back, I would have learned nothing. I would have stayed the person Blake turned me into. And who are you now? I'm still figuring that out. But I'm someone who understands that success without character is just empty. That relationships matter more than revenue. That trust takes years to build and seconds to destroy. She paused. I'm someone who's proud to be Tom Carter's daughter. Finally. I felt my eyes water. I'm proud of you too, sweetheart. Even after everything? Because of everything. You fell, you hit bottom, and you climbed back up. That takes more strength than never falling in the first place.
If this story taught you anything about family, betrayal, or redemption, drop a comment. Because the real lesson isn't about revenge. It's about knowing when to fight and when to forgive. 3 years after Madison had called me useless, we were standing together at the new Midwestern Logistics Solutions expansion facility in Cleveland. Madison was now a regional manager, earned through 3 years of grinding work, and she'd led the team that secured the contracts making this expansion possible. "Are you ready?" I asked, as we prepared to cut the ribbon. "I think so. Still nervous." "Good. If you're not nervous, you're not pushing yourself hard enough." Madison smiled, the real smile, the one I hadn't seen since before Blake. "Thanks, Dad, for everything. For not giving up on me, for teaching me the hard way, for being the father I needed even when I didn't deserve it." "You always deserved it, Madison. You just forgot for a while." We cut the ribbon together. Cameras flashed, employees cheered, and in that moment, I realized something. The empire I'd built wasn't the company or the assets or the revenue. It was this relationship, this second chance, this proof that even when betrayal cuts deep, love can cut deeper. Madison had tried to destroy me. I'd let her think she succeeded. Then I taught her why she'd failed. And in the process, I'd given her something more valuable than any company, a lesson in what really matters. The revenge wasn't watching her suffer. The revenge was watching her become someone better than she'd been. Someone who would never make those mistakes again. Someone who understood that character is the only asset that truly matters. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't destruction, it's redemption. 5 years later, Madison called me at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Dad, I have news." "What's that?" "I'm pregnant. You're going to be a grandfather." I felt tears stream down my face. "Congratulations, sweetheart."
Dad, if it's a girl, Connor and I want to name her Sarah, after Mom, and I want to promise her what you promised me at Mom's grave, that everything we build is for her. But Dad, this time I'll remember that everything we build isn't just about money. It's about character. It's about being someone worth inheriting from. Your mother would be proud of you, Madison. I hope so. And Dad, thank you for not letting me get away with destroying us, for loving me enough to let me fall and then helping me climb back up, for being the father every child deserves, but not every child appreciates. I love you, sweetheart. I love you too, Dad. After we hung up, I looked at the photo on my desk. Sarah and me on our wedding day. Young, hopeful, building a future. We'd built something all right. Not just a company, but a legacy of character, of second chances, of love that's stronger than betrayal. And isn't that worth more than any revenge? If you believe in second chances, subscribe. If you believe people can change, drop a comment. And if you've ever had to choose between destroying someone and saving them, tell me your story below. Because this isn't just my story anymore. It's all of ours.